listen up. Those of you that want VC money, those of you that are interested in pitching investors, this is going to be one amazing episode from Around the Coin podcast. I'm your host, Steven Sargeant. You know this by now, but we have Alice Lee that is heading up North America for Foresight Ventures. They have basically one of the few, if not the only VC companies that are actually doing their investments in crypto from east to west, North America to Asia. And she has all the insights, all of the jurisdictional arbitrage that's happening between both these regions. She's talking about investment, AI, and blockchain payments. She's asking you to reach out to her with her ideas and pitch her. We have never seen that on this podcast or many other podcasts. She's an amazing, amazing person, but genuinely has some really great insights about what's happening in this industry, what VCs are looking for, and she gives the lay of the land of where we exactly are in the state of VC investment in crypto and AI. We even talk about how some industries are going back and forth and some things that they stay completely away from, which will be great insights for those that might be in the payment sector, gaming sector, or NFTs. This is by far one of the funnest episodes. You know, we had to record with her. We were able to pull her away. She's on her phone. We were able to pull her away to enjoy this conversation for you, our dedicated listeners. And hopefully some of your ideas get through to her and she responds. Talk soon. This is your host, Steven Sargeant, the Around the Coin podcast. We're excited to have Alice Lee. You're the investment partner and head of North America at Foresight Ventures. We're going to go into your past, your background, what you've been working on, but give us, your 1 minute elevator pitch. If you're going up in the elevator, talking to other investors, what would be your pitch?
Well, hi, everyone. My name is Alice, and I'm the head of the US and also investment partner for Foresight Ventures. We are the first and the only VC that can bridge East and West. And yeah, we are really bullish about crypto, and we're backed by our LP is also a crypto exchange. Our LP is a crypto exchange. That's why we basically do all the investments in crypto. Yeah. And have offices in Singapore and US.
That's interesting. Why do you say that's a bold statement? You're the only VC that can bridge East and West. Like, what makes your approach different than maybe the other VCs that have to be very jurisdictionally based?
So for us, we have a large ecosystem consisting not just VCs. We do have media branches. So we own one of the largest crypto media in the Western world, The Block. We acquired The Block in early 2024. And we also have one of the largest crypto outlets in Asia. It's called Foresight News. We incubated the team, and that's why we can have the viewpoint of both the Eastern and Western world. And it's kind of interesting to see the opinion and also like the narratives shift. That could be different from the Western world and Eastern world, where the retails in the Western side is more about stablecoins, more about RWAs, and then for the Eastern retail users, they are more focused on, sometimes meme coins or what other things that can bring them 10x or 30x return. So that's very interesting narrative, and that gives us like a very brand new, that gives us a very different approach when it comes to analyzing the project, when it comes to do more due diligence on the team. We could definitely rely on those media insights.
Awesome. Sorry, I'm just pausing quickly. Just be careful when every time you move, it's like it'll catch that sound from the mic.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Like, it's just the first 2 minutes. I'll flag my team, but we'll take this part out, obviously. But just be careful when you move. Like, try to or position that so it's not like as soon as it rubs against your shirt, it'll make a sound. Yeah. So this kind of position it so that nothing's perfect. Awesome.
Okay. Sounds good.
Awesome. That's amazing. So, what's interesting about you, Alice, I was looking, based on what you've done in the past. You were at Amazon and TikTok from but pre-pandemic. It seems like you're more on the product segment side. What were some of your tactics for helping to grow these organizations pre-pandemic?
Well, I worked for Amazon for the product management team. And I also worked in TikTok in London for their product growth team. And actually, during my time in Amazon, I was just building the Prime product to ask people to sign up for Prime. That was a pretty standard job, honestly. That's why I decided to do something more challenging, and I joined TikTok at a very early stage. But when I joined TikTok, that was actually already close to pandemic time. So they decided to build a new TikTok version in Europe, especially targeting users in the UK, right? And one of the tactics that we come up with is use token incentives to reward our users. So the more you watch video, the more tokens you earn. Of course, it's not a real token. It's like a point system. But that strategy actually worked out very well. I helped design all the account system, all the redeem, withdraw functionalities, and all the kind of KYC payment integrations. And this incentive program alone bring us almost 1 million users within the first 1 week of launch. So that was when I realized that, having an economic incentive is very important to users and it's a very efficient tool. And after that, it didn't went that well. Of course, the app store started to see like what we're doing and they definitely noticed us. And they kind of give us a warning letter because it's unfair competition or something. So they kind of stopped us from operation. So that since then we kind of stopped growing from, I guess the daily active user was around 400 million. And then everything start drop. All the metrics starts to drop. And that's when I realized in this centralized ecosystem, you have to ask for App Store, Google Store for permission, right? Because they set the rules. But what if we go to somewhere that doesn't have any rule? What if we do the same thing in, crypto where everything's permissionless? Then our app would definitely go viral. And that's when I started to find maybe my passion is not just in, traditional world. And then I started to look for other opportunities in crypto. Yeah, that's how I realized that. That's why I joined Foresight after I, find out all of the kind of drawbacks of the traditional institutions. Yeah.
And we see it not just in like whether it's the app store, it's also in payments. You remember like early on, especially now with the emergence of OnlyFans. Before there were other, visions like OnlyFans and that kind of industry where you couldn't pay via Visa or Mastercard, not because it was illegal, just because morally those companies did not want to stand up those industries. So we saw the importance of crypto very early on when it's like, okay, these things are not banned or illegal, but because a certain government or a certain person doesn't like the activities that our payments are being made, and we saw this as well with the whole Ukraine and Russia invasion, is that you couldn't send funds to Ukraine via crowdsourcing or GoFundMe because they don't allow you to make payments towards military grade equipment. So we've seen it multiple times, the importance of having a decentralized way to process payments, to run social media. I'm curious now, because you're seeing both the East and West, a lot of your experience was when you were residing in China. The discussion around tariffs between China and USA. What are your own personal perspectives of this situation? And maybe, since you've come to the US, do you see it a little bit differently from both sides?
Yeah, I guess tariff is never a good thing for both sides because it makes our life harder and everything more expensive. But I think in a way that I see that more as a tactic for two countries to actually negotiate on certain things, right? I think it's gonna be a zero sum game in the end, but it's more about setting boundaries and learning about where each other's boundaries are. And of course, I think Trump is used to have their tactic to negotiate on terms as a very smart and successful businessman. And for me as a crypto investor, of course, I love Trump. But as a Chinese living here, living in Asia, I will also concern that that might have strong impact in our economy, right? So it's very complicated, but nothing can stop this trend because like where we are right now, it's really hard to stop anything from happening. So yeah, but in the end, I feel like crypto might be the resolution for everyone to have like a better store of value to hedge against risk in a time of this when it's uncertain and maybe the economy situation will go bad for both parties. Yeah.
Do you believe Trump is net positive for crypto? You said, of course, you like Trump, but I feel the same way. My phone's ringing a lot more today than it was maybe 6 months ago or 100 days ago. Do you feel that Trump is net positive for crypto? But do you also think there will be challenges for individual companies or different nuances within the crypto industry versus everybody will rise with this kind of momentum tide that we're seeing in crypto?
Yeah, I think in general, I think in general, Trump administration is definitely good for crypto. And we are looking for them to actually put forward more policies and regulations for stablecoin and payments. But right, it's very hard to predict what they'll do again. So long term, I think it's net positive. For short term, it's hard to tell, especially when they launch all the meme coins that kind of suck all the liquidities from the market, right? That's something like they basically ruined the whole meme coin concept. Now that everyone think about it, they think about the meme coin that Trump and Melania did, and like it was really bad because everyone got kind of lose some money, as far as I know, right?
Yeah, like two people made a lot of money. The 98,000 other people probably lost a couple dollars here and there. I'm curious, what are your thoughts around how do you approach investing? And we're going to get into, your company and Foresight as well, but how do you approach it knowing that when it was the Biden administration, it was pretty much anti-crypto, Operation Choke Point. And now it's like, oh, crypto digital asset stockpiles and pro crypto. But if they don't stay in power in the next 4 years, could we go back to, where we were, 3 or 4 months ago? How do you balance that when you're trying to make an investment or long-term investment that this pendulum is swinging to both extremes? It's not really kind of like hovering in the middle there.
I think in general, if we see the whole growth chart of Bitcoin, when it was first invented, nobody believes it. When it gets a little bit bigger, then some people think it's scam, right? A lot of the regulators didn't like it, but it survived. So Bitcoin and crypto is a concept that can survive even when it's extreme in an anti or like, even if it's in a very unfriendly environment. It's very resilient. So the baseline is we could definitely hold Bitcoin in long term, whether the legislation environment is good or bad. I think right now we need to talk about stability. So how fast the crypto market can grow. Well, if it's Trump administration, of course, it's grow fast, despite all the fluctuations, of course. But with Biden or with other governments come to power, maybe it'll grow slower, maybe it'll bounce, maybe it'll dip again, but eventually it'll bounce back because that's the history. That's what we learn from history. Bitcoin is never going to die. So for us to invest in long term, of course, we don't really invest in memes. Of course, that's rule number one. We want to invest in something long term, and we're going to hold the asset long term as well. So it can kind of offset a lot of the fluctuation over time.
I love that. Yeah, because if you look at 12 years, you would have 3 or 4 cycles by that time anyway. So whether it was up or down and how it works. Can you give me, your modus operandi, your ethos for Foresight Ventures? You say that you make all your investments or maybe the majority of your investments in crypto. What is your approach when investing in not just crypto, but the entire technology space?
Yeah, so there are a few things that we look at to evaluate a company. Firstly is your business model, whether your business model makes sense, whether that creates value for our clients. And at least we want this business to survive for the next 3 to 5 years. That's why we don't invest in very short-term memes or NFTs or games, because we never find any games that can live for more than 1 year for crypto games. And long-term strategy is we focus in two areas. One is AI plus crypto, and the second one is payment plus crypto. So these are the sectors that we find really long, find a lot of sustainability in, and can actually have product market fit in the future. But it's slow. It's slow to make any progress and to have the first clients. So we gotta be very confident and very patient to these companies. And we're also helping them a lot to kind of brand themselves in Asia and Western world. And also like try to introduce them to a lot of our portfolio already, because we have around 150 portfolio companies. So there are a lot of chances for them to become partners with each other. Yeah. So that's first approach is whether the business is long term. And then the second is whether the team is legit. If they have strong backgrounds, if they have built a startup before, if they know crypto enough. Because building a startup in crypto is, I would say it's more it's more like building a crypto startup might be a little bit more complicated than Web2 products, because you need to know the community. You need to know how to launch your token. You need to understand your relationship with the exchange, with the liquidity providers, with your market makers, and even with VCs. If you wanted to do, first, second, third round, or even after TG, you wanted to do OTC rounds. So there are a lot of things to learn, and we prefer the ones that really is trying to deliver value for everyone, including community, including your early supporters and your angel investors. So it's very important to know the team ahead of time or for a long time to see if they're legit. Because
I'm
a lot of them would just extract liquidity from VC and then, or try to, second step is to extract liquidity from the retail market. And that's the least thing we want to see for this industry.
Can you explain when you say something like extract liquidity for someone that's listening? What does that mean? Like, can you give us like an example of like how would they extract liquidity from VCs or extract liquidity from the broader community?
Yeah. So, for example, there are a lot of projects that have, a really good narrative and then tell their users that they're going to launch a token, right? If you participate in my test net, if you participate in my demo, you might get more airdrop in the future. But and then they kind of use this story and this pitch to raise a lot of money from VCs and then have a really high valuation. And when the token actually launch, they don't really want to share the benefit with the community. So a lot of the qualified users didn't get the airdrop. That's when you can feel a lot of dissatisfaction from the retail market. And then also when it comes to, everyone's hoping that the token price will go up. But instead, when everyone's buying, the team could be secretly selling the token to exit. And there are multiple ways to do that, of course. So they're extracting value from the market and also extracting value from VCs as early supporters.
Let me see if I can break this down. So they say, hey, we have this new token. It's coming. Come participate, sign up. And then they go to you and say, look at all, and we'll give you, you'll benefit from the token raising in prices. Then they go to the VC and say, hey, look at all these people as part of our community. Like, you should help us fund this. And look at all the potential customers we're going to have and, the largest ecosystem. And then when they actually finally launch the token, the price is still high because they receive funds from you. They have all this excitement from the users because they've now received funding. And, I'm assuming a lot of these projects give it all these grants and get everyone to come participate. And then in the background, they might be selling off their tokens that they hold to try and take some money off the table while not really putting their all into making sure that there's a long-term or sustainable project for everyone to benefit in the long term. Is that a synopsis of what would happen?
Yeah, exactly. I think initially the why VCs and the retail investors want to buy your token, definitely because we believe that you can build a future. You can fulfill the fulfill the vision that you told us, right? But a lot of them, when they get the money, things changed, right? You can never bet on humanity. And we've made that mistake before, but now we are very selective and very smart in like knowing the founder, who are the right ones that we should work with, who are the ones that only want to make money very quickly.
That yacht and the visa will change people, that's what happens. They're like, hey, we're getting invited to all these parties, especially a lot of these guys are, very technical and they'll be able to be the first ones to admit they're very nerdy. And all of a sudden they have
Yeah,
money and, women and attention and, things can change. If you had to give
exactly.
us the lay of the land as like, what's the VC market looking like right now? Every year it seems like it's either the people seeking money are not happy or the VCs aren't happy with their return. There's always this like tension between VCs and companies. Where are we right now? Do you feel like this is good terms, fair evaluations? Are companies still trying to get, $1 billion for an idea? Where are we now in this kind of ecosystem?
So for us, I think right now the valuations are pretty low, and but the problem is we are not seeing many good assets in the market. So the even though the price is low, it doesn't justify the why we should invest at this time. Because if you invest in Bitcoin or Ethereum, it'll probably give you a higher and quicker return already. So we haven't been that actively in investing in new projects because we already deployed a lot 1 or 2 years ago. So what we're focusing on is more to help our portfolios to either TGE or build community or ship products. Yeah, but in terms of new investment, I think that a lot of VC will hesitate if it's the right time or the right moment to invest in new project because you need to wait for another 3 years to unlock the token. That means you're probably waiting for betting on the next cycle and betting on who's going to survive the whole bull and bear market, right? But and with that being said, if we see any good projects in AI and payments, we definitely would love to double down on that. But rest of them, we're really carefully evaluating the opportunity.
And I know it's impossible to play favorites. Can you tell me about maybe some portfolio companies you have or some unique use cases that they're supplementing?
Yeah, sure. Recently, we've done an investment with ATC. It's it's an AI project. So it's called Pine.ai. They're building a Web3 version of Siri in your phone. And the the oh sorry, let me reframe that. So the project that I like the most is Pine AI. We collect or we didn't collect. We co-invested this project with a movie. It's a AI project with a lot of really strong tech team behind it. And it's building like a personalized AI model on your phone that can make your Siri more automated, more smart. So it's like imagine that you have an AI assistant that can access to all of your data from your Google search, from your Uber history, from your takeout history. So it knows everything about you, and it can help you to, order food again based on your preference. And it can help you arrange meetings and call an Uber for you to move from one conference meeting to another meeting. So it's very, very cool project. And the thing is, I think it definitely has used the advantage of crypto because if you're talking about having this AI assistant, you cannot just assign it a banking card because banks don't really like AI. They don't see AI as the entity, right? So when you really want to have the AI assistant to do anything for you, they will need to have a non-custodial wallet where they can issue or they can finish small transactions. So crypto is a very great setup in this scenario. And recently they've launched a Telegram mini app to kind of have this first trial. And then they already have almost 2 million users in the first 1 month. And of course, they're preparing to TGE soon. So stay tuned.
I love that. And we see it like little instances when you're, about to go somewhere, you're dropping your kids to soccer. You open up your Google Maps, it already puts the kind of address that you probably are going to go to because it's the same time every week. So I think we use it in like certain areas, but we would love if it could pull elements from all areas. And to your point, having to put in our credit card information for every transaction, if that's even possible, becomes a little bit cumbersome as well. So having the opportunity to make payments. You mentioned about crypto payments. I think there's no better crypto payment, killer app than stablecoins. What are your thoughts? The recent stablecoin legislation in the US got stalled, but you've also seen regulation probably in places like Singapore. What are your thoughts around stablecoin legislation that's being proposed in the US and maybe just overall the stablecoin industry from your perspective from east to west?
I think if we start with Singapore, Singapore is still quite strict, not just in crypto, but in general, the legislation environment. The Singapore authority is very strict in making any kind of laws, and they're very careful about everything. When it comes to crypto legislation, it is friendly to crypto, but you gotta obey a lot of rules. Say, one of my portfolio is a crypto bank in Singapore, and then it has all the banking license in Singapore, but still under the monetary authority of Singapore, they cannot do a lot of things, including issue banking accounts to non-Singaporean residents, right? But like you can actually do that in Hong Kong if you're holding Hong Kong licenses. So regionally speaking, it'll be quite different based on different government styles. But Asia in general is very friendly to crypto for sure. And here you could see some shops that could just help you on and off brand BTC very quickly. Just the physical shop in Hong Kong. And you can also have a couple of the traditional payment companies that are willing to try out crypto payments, and they actually encourage people to pay with crypto. So it's getting started, but I think we're still far away from like having crypto to actually mass adoption. Whereas in the US, I actually feel like the legislation is getting better, maybe just not as quick as we expected. But in terms of the innovation, we're seeing a lot of innovations right now, including, for the banks, you don't really need to apply. You don't really need to submit any applications when you touch crypto, right? And there are a lot of major improvements coming. So if it comes to the innovation, I think US is ahead of Asia. But if it comes to, real life adoption, maybe Asia is a little bit faster because we already are quite friendly to crypto for years.
That's interesting. And your team, wrote research and prepped research on the topic of stablecoins. Stablecoins are all the rage. BVNK, I think, raised even more money after they just raised $50 million worth of capital. We saw Ripple attempting to buy Circle for multiple billions of dollars. Are you surprised by the M&A happening in the stablecoin market? Or was this just inevitable based on, 2/3 of every crypto transaction is stablecoins? And it looks like they're loosening up a little bit of the leniency when it comes to M&A in the US, which has been stifled for at least the last 4 years.
Yeah, I think it's a very good trend to see that so many M&As are happening in the stablecoin area because that's where we actually see product market fit for crypto, right? And with more money coming into this area, then we'll have more builders. They have more money to apply for license that can make crypto more regulated. and more legit. So I think it's a progress for the whole industry that we started to shift our focus from purely meme or NFT or any kind of really volatile assets to something that actually can bring us real long-term value and can actually make an impact to our real life. So I'd be happy to see that. At the same time, I'm a little bit worried as well because, there are so many stablecoin payment companies. There are so many stablecoins, and people are still trying to issue more. Not even, let alone exchanges, centralized exchange. They're also trying to share the pie from here. So maybe it's getting crowded, but for users, it's actually a good thing because it brings the fee down. Let alone the fees of crypto transactions are already very low. So we could expect that maybe in the future, we could just have this international remittance through crypto with zero fees. So that's when we actually have like more advantage when it comes to crypto payments versus traditional payments.
Yeah, you might see them remove fees altogether and figure out other ways to monetize because now they have millions of customers transacting within their institution or protocol. They don't have to charge a small transaction fee. They can, go with the fact that they have mass adoption. Are there any
Yeah,
other,
exactly.
key highlights from the report that, or concepts, especially around stablecoins, things like non-crypto user adoption, innovative business models? We kind of touched on regulatory challenges or like, yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts about that and have a follow-up question from about, trending jurisdictions.
Yeah, yeah. I like to share a very interesting trend that I've seen after years of, development for the sorry. I like to share a very interesting trend that we see recently is the development of all the payment chains. So if we look at payment chains a few years ago, we see Ripple, we see Stella, and what they're really doing is they're trying to bridge the gap between the underbanked areas like Africa and Latin America and help those users to get access to US dollars or get access to digital local currencies, right? Because they don't have the banking infrastructure. Maybe some of them don't even have a bank account for the entire of their life. So they've been doing very well in that in those developing countries. Those I would call them the first generation of payment chains. And then right now we're seeing is the second generation of payment chains coming out with, stable backed by Tether, Codex backed by Dragonfly. For example, we also invested in Codex. And also One Money, right? Backed by, I'm not quite sure who's their investor, but One Money is definitely also another very cool payment chain. So what they're doing is trying to bridge the gap between actually the enterprise and the payment rails for crypto. They can provide a lot of the kind of one-stop solution for them for merchants to acquire the payments from companies. And after that, they could provide a lot of on and off ramp solutions for the merchants to kind of to exchange their crypto that they receive change their crypto to fiat. So it's changing a lot. And I think one of the reasons is that definitely the impact is brought by Bridge. After Bridge got acquired by Stripe, everyone started to discover that, having the enterprise side of merchant acquiring is very important. Having stablecoin orchestration layer is very important. So everyone's trying to benchmark that narrative. And to dive deeper into that, I think it's not just about bridge acquisition. It's also about that we have the, it's also about that the company that we're looking at these days are more friendly and are willing to try out crypto. One is because that crypto user is growing bigger and people are willing to pay with crypto. So they have to accept crypto payment. Second part is they also want to avoid the traditional banking rails, because for every transaction they make, they have to pay 2 to 3% to Visa or MasterCard. But with crypto, you can pay 0%, right? So they're willing to try out crypto. Some of them even are willing to try their own stablecoins. Maybe you pay with their stablecoins and everything will be settled with their internal bookkeeping system. That's very cool. I think that's a very cool trend that we're seeing. And right now, I think the third thing that we're seeing right now is the Circle Payment Network. That what they're trying to build is one step ahead of those payment chains. They're building like a off-chain payment orchestration layer where you have all the OTC providers, you have all the financial institutions joining this network, and then they could provide like a all-in-one solutions for you to OTC from anywhere in the world. You can on-ramp from US and off-ramp in Mexico. Just leave it to Circle Payment Network. They could find you the best OTC providers. You don't even worry about that, right? And yeah, it's very competitive space, but we're very happy to see that everyone is trying to propose their new ideas and trying to actually make an impact to the progress of having crypto in real life.
And I think you brought up a couple interesting things. First, I think the Circle Payment Network didn't get as much attention as it probably should. Like, that's a huge deal. It's a huge undertaking. It's huge infrastructure layer. I don't think it got as much attention as I thought it would. And to your point about Bridge, it's almost like the Joe Rogan effect, right? Like, if you're a podcaster, once you find out how Joe Rogan making $100 million in a podcast with this many views, that's kind of like your benchmark. You can say, hey, I don't get as much as Joe Rogan, but hey, if Joe Rogan's getting paid this amount, then we, that do maybe 1/10 of what he does, we should get kind of paid that amount. So I think that bridge deal kind of sets the benchmark of what the industry is willing to pay, almost like the top price the industry is willing to pay. And I think if you're an investor or if you're a project like BVNK approaching investors, you can say, well, this market is huge. Look at what companies or VCs are willing to give this organization, or companies are willing to buy these organizations for. That kind of sets a price element. Could I be right or wrong? It kind of sets a benchmark for pricing around these companies, or do you guys not look at it like that?
Yeah, so for the bridge question, I think it's a very common comparison that we make when it comes to evaluating the value of a company. We do compare the comps we do compare the comps of other companies, and then we kind of evaluate that in the same term. Of course, not everyone is bridge. If the quality of your clients is not as high profile as bridge, we'll definitely give you a discount. But if you're higher, definitely come to me. We definitely give you a higher multiple than bridge. Yeah. So for the Circle Payment Network, I think you're right. That. It's not like getting as much attention as it should. I talked to the Circle team. I feel like they are a large team, and everyone has different KPIs and different things to work with. Even if they got a lot of inbound interest for the Circle Payment Network, the problem is that they don't have enough people to walk around and then, to try to ship the product to market, because what they're trying to build is huge. It's a very big narrative. And even for Circle, they probably don't have enough people to do that. And that definitely gives a lot of small company and startups a chance to maybe just have the same idea, but build like an Asian version of Circle Payment Network. So I would say it's a good thing for all the startups that's listening to this podcast.
You really just raised a great point about, like, hey, an Asian base or an Asian version or APAC version or European version. We talked about that a couple times. What are the trends that you're seeing? Is it more APAC or Asian based companies looking to get into the US market? Or is it like, and vice versa, the US market's like, hey, this is working perfectly here. We can, address a huge TAM out there in Asia. Let's try and see if we can make some connections there. You're kind of that connection point to the east to west. Where do you see the flow of interest and capital, or even just collaboration going? Is it east to west, west to east, a little bit of both?
I think it's always been a little bit of both, but it depends on what kind of sector you're talking about. If it's payment, it could be really segmented. because payment, you need to have license all around the world if you want to build a network effect. So what they usually do is, if I am a payment company in the US, I have my MTL license in different states, but I want to wire my money to Singapore. I will find a Singaporean partner that has the Singapore license, right? And vice versa. If any Singapore company wants to go to the US, you've got to find a local partner as well. So it kind of depends. But if it's just normal operations, like like AI and like trading, I would say like we see a lot of retail activities happening in Asia, happening from Telegram mini apps. But for institutional activities, definitely the market is very active in the US.
And that makes a lot of sense, I think, for a lot of people. You had touched on earlier about, being one of the few VCs and organizations in Web3 that paid in crypto. What crypto are you using? Are you using stable coins? Are you using maybe the actual tokens of the company? Like, I would love to know how you're making these payments in crypto.
Well, so for us, we are also using USDC and USDT most of the time when we invest in companies, right? Because it's one-on-one backed by US dollar. So it's easier to, send over the funds and then, set the terms and negotiate on the price. But before that, when Ethereum was at its prime time, we did a few deals, investment in Ethereum. Well, that was like a few years back.
And what happens when it fluctuates? Is it just like, hey, if you're paying in Bitcoin, you accept that fluctuation? Like, I bought NFTs when Ethereum, I think, was at 5,000, whether it was Canadian or US, I can't remember. And that same the same NFT price has gone down, but that amount I paid for Ethereum is a lot more expensive than it is today. So how does that impact your investments with the fluctuation of something like Ethereum?
Yeah, I think at that time we definitely record that investment as the real value at that time. Like how much how much of that Ethereum worth. So that's how much we invest. But whether the founders will withdraw or exchange that to fiat, that's their choice, right? We only keep the book value at that current time, that point of time.
That's interesting. Talk to me about the media side, because you don't see, A16Z, they have a podcast and they put out a lot of thought leadership. You don't see too many VCs in the crypto space. Buying up the block is huge. We saw though recently, like CoinDesk, I think, abandoned their kind of media aspirations and they've kind of scaled back. We've worked with companies like Blockworks, who has, a really great hold. How hard is it to have a media arm to what you're doing? Because obviously you don't want to talk negatively about your companies that are in your portfolio, or there's that almost conflict of interest sometimes. Like, I have clients like Chainalysis. It doesn't mean that I don't talk about other companies, but I'm not going to talk about them as much as I do my clients, just because I'm working with them so much, so I have a lot more insight. How do you bridge that gap or walk that balance between wanting to put out good media but realizing that there might be conflict behind the scenes?
Yeah, I think from the very beginning, the reason why we wanted to acquire the block is not just about the business view of it, but we see the quality of research that the block can provide to the whole industry. And we don't really want this media outlets to shut down. And we want it because like the whole industry needs more education. It needs a voice to tell people that what we're doing and to even tell the traditional audiences that what's the innovation, what's their viewpoint. So we do want to keep this research team very lean and very neutral. And we'd be very careful about that. Even after the acquisition, we didn't actually put any pressure on the direction that they should research and what kind of media that they should release. We keep everything pretty separate. I would say like the value add that we can bring to the blog is that we could give them a lot of the Asian clients, and also they could actually learn some, you know, learn some of the ideas that we have, and then maybe if they like the idea, they could definitely publish that, right? As as far as I know, they published my payment report. They published a report about Solana. So, and AI, of course. And rest of them, I think we'll see. We'll see. I don't think that it's a must that it will require a company they have to publish everything and help us to advertise our
But it's
portfolio. That's not a
encouraged. You're
must.
like, hey, we're not going to stop you from, promoting this highly researched document, but we would love for you to share it.
Yeah. I would say it's important to keep a balance. But if it's our portfolio, of course we will encourage you to take a look at it, and we will also encourage our portfolios to become their clients, right? So
Right.
that both sides could benefit with each other.
And the benefit of that is like you're investing in these portfolio companies. So if they're doing some research and they're finding things like, hey, this doesn't make sense, or hey, what's going on in here, it could actually benefit your portfolio company as well, that they're getting some insights that they might have been blinded to from having this independent research.
Yeah, exactly. Because the block has very amazing research team, and then they can provide a lot of the insights from U.S. institution and U.S. retail markets. So they actually can help a lot of my Asian portfolio companies to know the market better when they try to enter the market. And that's why their advisory business is doing pretty well as well. After we acquired the company, I think the revenue number and their average viewer also has peaked since 2024. Yeah.
And how do you measure the media side? Because I see a lot of these media reports working with PR companies as a content marketing agency ourselves. How do you view? Is it most views? Is it the engagement? Is it the click-through rates? Is it the like, hey, the advisory portfolio is growing, even though our usership might not be, which means more people are being focused about the research, more engagement, but maybe less views. How do you approach with so many different metrics to understand and so many different business aspects to what you're doing? How do you strategically approach the growth on that side?
I'm not an expert on that for sure. So I cannot give you like the most exact answer. I cannot answer a question for the blog actually, because I'm not engaged of the operation here.
Completely understand. You did mention the AI report that your team built. Can you take out some key concept you mentioned? I believe it was Pine.ai. That's huge in what they're doing along with micropayments and using like the kind of Siri model. Is there anything else in AI? And what are your thoughts? We're seeing a lot of builders jump, to AI, then the price of Bitcoin goes up and they come back to crypto. What are you seeing right now from your side?
Yeah, I would say like it's really interesting to see that people jumping from AI to crypto and come back and forth. But what we are actually looking for is the long-term builders. So whether you're an AI builder or a crypto builder, or you do AI and crypto at the same time, right? Just choose your path and then try to build stuff that actually can make sense in each of these directions. If you're jumping on and off, it's gonna be pretty bad for your in the eye of VCs. But people are a lot of them are optimistic, so you cannot actually judge them for doing that. But we so for us, our investment thesis is definitely to invest in someone that has like a long term view and long term faith in one industry.
And you've probably researched the space a lot, even though you've only been in, well, not only, but you've been in a fair amount of time. We've seen kind of like this trajectory back to like hardware investments from VCs, of course, with Nvidia and all these other hardware and chip providers. What are your thoughts about hardware versus software, Web3 decentralized versus like tangible, companies that are building tangible or manufacturing tangible assets?
I would say, in terms of the hardware versus the software, hardware is a business that's firstly very costly and has a very strong technology moat. And it's really hard to disrupt the current market share. That's why we see NVIDIA definitely taking out, and nobody's going to challenge its position. There's not much room for new players. For software, it's easier. And that's why when I was like entering into crypto, we are especially interested in those SaaS businesses because it has a lot of VC opportunities, I think early stage opportunities to invest. And it's all about user experience, it's all about retention, it's all about ARR, it's all about whether you have strong client profile. And the competition is fierce, but if you have a great idea, you could steal customers from bigger companies. So that's a that's a segment that's more exciting for VC, of course, for investors. And if it comes to Web3, if it comes to Web3 startup to Web2 startups, I would say like, so for Web2 startups, it like what they're building is what like for Web2 systems, it's always efficiency, right? It's always centralized systems, so it brings higher efficiencies to finish anything. But if it's Web3, it's decentralized, it's permissionless, so we can never compete Web2 systems in terms of the efficiency. But what we can do is accessibility, is the privacy aspect of it. So that's why I would say like the AI plus crypto would be a very nice scenario, because with crypto, AI could pay like a small transaction and can pay anytime, 24 hours without border. It's going to be a very interesting combination and a real use case for crypto. And also for payment as well, because the current banking system is efficient, but it's expensive and it's fragmented. So crypto can bring us more benefit, as in it's 24 hours, it's permissionless. You could definitely swap tokens, swap all kinds of local digital currencies anytime with very low fees. So I think it's not that Web3 is gonna disrupt Web2. It's more like Web3 is gonna complement Web2 in a lot of ways, that especially when Web2 systems are not working very well.
I love it. I love it. Can you talk as we, end this session? Can you talk to me? Give me some insights. Are there certain companies that you have your eye on? And if you don't feel comfortable about companies, maybe some areas that people aren't talking about now that people should have their eyes on. We're seeing like Doodle launch their own tokens, the NFT project. Is the metaverse going to make a comeback? I haven't heard anything about WorldCoin or Soulbound tokens this year at any conferences. Where where's some niche areas that you're like, we still keep on our eye on that, and we're still building or investing in the space, even though it's not part of this recent hype cycle?
Right. I think something that I'm personally very interested in is how AI can actually replace humans in future workflow. For example, for our interview today, can we just be like a AI version of Alice and AI version of Stefan, right? And then we don't even need to be here late night or early in the morning. We just have our AI agent to present us to finish the call. It's the same as, when we as investors, we interview a team, maybe everyone could be an AI agent. And then we could have delegate our AI agent to sort out the most useful information, to sort out the most useful leads, so that we can make the final decision. I think that'll be a very interesting scenario. And apart from that, I would say like there are a lot of ways that AI can help us to live a better life. As in, say, we are going to conferences, right? Crypto people love to go to conferences, but you don't know who are the ones that you should talk to. Maybe an AI could give you, like a AI assistant can help you sort out the most useful leads before you attend this conference. And maybe they can even send out an email or a cold call to the person that you should be talking with and arrange meetings for you. So probably you don't even need an internal assistant anymore. So that's something that I'm very excited about. So that could definitely cut off, 50% of the personnel in the crypto industry so far. But we haven't seen any really cool agents building out, especially for Web3 sales and networking scenario. That's
And I think
something
we have the
that,
technology. I would love a little bit of like, Pokemon Go, where if I'm walking by somebody, the AI will be able to pick up on my phone. This might be interesting. Here's a person that you might want to connect with. And I could go over to their booth or see them getting food. I would love just like an instant connection point and be like, hey, this person's interesting. They're close by you. Why don't you go walk? It's like you walk by people that could be your next business partner, your next client, your next friend, but you have no idea because you don't want to be like staring at their name tag or
yeah, exactly. That's kind of crunch. That's
I love it.
that's kind of
Alice,
awkward. Yeah.
yeah, it's super awkward when you're like, oh, and then it's like, oh, I don't really think I need to talk to you. So should I walk away now? Do I have to have a 15-minute conversation so I don't seem like, this complete jerk? It's always very tough.
Exactly.
I like conferences that have like 100 and less or 150 and less people. We have consensus coming here in Toronto next week. It's going to be massive, like tens of thousands of people. And, I'm hoping my team's just going to go around and talk to people and videotape it. And then that will be easier afterwards. I could sit down and be like, oh, this sounds like an interesting person. Might be someone to connect with. Tell us anything about that's happening with Foresight Ventures in 2025. Anything that you're excited about, launches, premieres. Let us know that and the best way to get in touch with you.
Yeah. So for Foresight, we will definitely continue to build our brand globally, and we will host a lot of events, startup meetings, startup founder meetings, hacker houses in a US office. Will be at all the major conferences, including Token 2049, including ATC. So if you have any good ideas, especially about AI and stablecoins, feel free to reach out to us through our Twitter channel, or you can email us as well. My email is alice@foresightVentures.com. Just send us your good ideas. We'll definitely be in touch.
What really happens when you get these ideas? Do you guys kind of just sit there? Do you run it through an AI and say, pass me back the ones that sound interesting if it meets this criteria? Are you a weird person that'll just jump on the phone and call somebody like, hey, you have this idea. What are you actually doing? What are your numbers? Like, how does it actually work behind the scenes?
Well, we're actually very traditional. It's just me taking a look at my mailbox and then see if that's a good fit. Then we'll follow up with emails. But I was hoping that we could have an AI agent some days to deal with all of my cores, daily cores. If not, I'll probably have a portfolio or have any technology. Sorry, I'll find a CTO to build a portfolio. We'll have a CTO to build up the agent for our internal use because I really need it.
I love it. I love that you're still, that's like Jensen, he's still, checking his emails, sending quick responses. So you're still keeping your ear to the street, which probably makes you effective working for a VC. Alice, thank you so much today for tuning in and letting us know all the insights, especially what's happening from east to west. It was really insightful to see some of these trends and to hear what actual VCs are looking for.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you for all the inspiring questions. I really enjoyed having this conversation with you.
This was a great combo. Thank you so much.